What if the strongest man who ever lived was also one of the most broken? What if incredible power was defeated not by an enemy, but by human weakness? This is the story of Samson, a man chosen by God, gifted with supernatural strength, yet undone by his own choices. This is not just a story about muscles and battles. It's a story about purpose, pride, failure, and redemption. The story of Samson begins during a dark time for Israel. The Philistines ruled the land. They were powerful, violent, and feared. Israel lived under their control, and hope was fading fast. In a small town lived a man named Manoah and his wife. They had no children, and for many years they prayed for one. Then, one day, everything changed. An angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife and gave her an incredible message. She would have a son, but this child would be different. He was chosen by God before birth. He would live under a special vow. He was never to drink alcohol, and his hair was never to be cut. This vow showed that his life belonged to God, and through him, Israel would begin to be delivered from the Philistines. When the child was born, they named him Samson. As he grew, it became clear that God had blessed him with extraordinary strength. Not normal strength, but God-given strength. When the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, Samson could do what no ordinary man could do. But while Samson grew stronger on the outside, his heart was quietly growing weaker. As a young man, Samson became attracted to Philistine women, even though the Philistines were Israel's enemies. His parents warned him, but Samson followed his desires instead of wisdom. One day, while traveling to visit a Philistine woman, a young lion suddenly attacked him. Instead of running away, Samson grabbed the lion and tore it apart with his bare hands. He told no one what had happened. Later, when he passed the same place, he saw bees had made honey inside the lion's body. He took some of the honey and ate it, again telling no one. At his wedding feast, Samson decided to test the Philistines. He gave them a riddle, promising a reward if they could solve it. If they failed, they would owe him greatly. The riddle was based on the lion and the honey, something only Samson knew. The Philistines could not solve it, so they threatened Samson's wife and her family. Under pressure, she begged Samson day after day until he finally gave in and told her the answer. The Philistines used it to win by cheating. Samson was furious. In his anger, he killed 30 Philistine men to pay his debt. From that moment on, Samson's life became a cycle of revenge and violence. The Philistines struck him, and he struck back even harder. God was still using Samson to weaken Israel's enemies, but Samson was no longer guided by purpose. He was driven by anger. When the Philistines later mistreated Samson's wife, he responded by destroying their farmland, setting fire to their fields and crops. The Philistines retaliated, and soon an entire army was sent to capture Samson. Samson allowed his own people to tie him up and hand him over. But when the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, the ropes snapped like thread. He grabbed the jawbone of a donkey and used it to defeat 1,000 Philistine soldiers. It was an unbelievable victory. Yet even after this, Samson did not change. Strength without self-control was slowly destroying him. Then Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah. The Philistine rulers saw an opportunity and offered Delilah a large amount of money if she could discover the secret of Samson's strength. Delilah agreed. Again and again, she asked Samson how he could be defeated. At first, Samson lied to her, giving false answers. Each time the Philistines tried to capture him, Samson broke free. But Delilah did not give up. Day after day, she pressured him, accusing him of not loving her and of hiding the truth. Eventually, Samson grew tired and gave in. He told her the secret. He said his strength came from God, symbolized by his uncut hair. If his hair were shaved, he would become weak like any other man. That night, while Samson slept, Delilah had his hair shaved off. When the Philistines attacked, Samson tried to fight, but this time his strength was gone. He did not realize that the Lord had left him. The Philistines captured him, gouged out his eyes, and put him in prison. The strongest man in the world was now blind, chained, and powerless, forced to grind grain like an animal. But the story does not end there. While Samson sat in prison, something began to change. His hair started to grow back, and more importantly, his heart began to turn back to God. Time passed, and the Philistines gathered for a massive celebration. They praised their God and brought Samson out of prison to entertain them. Thousands of people filled the temple, laughing and mocking him. Blind and broken, Samson asked a servant to place his hands on the two main pillars supporting the building. Then Samson prayed. He did not boast. He did not make excuses. He asked God for strength one last time. God answered his prayer. With all his remaining strength, Samson pushed against the pillars. The building collapsed, killing Samson and thousands of Philistines inside. In his death, Samson defeated more enemies than he ever had during his life. The story of Samson is not just about physical strength. It is about potential and responsibility. Samson was chosen by God and given incredible gifts, but his greatest weakness was not his enemies. It was his lack of self-control. He followed desire instead of wisdom, pride instead of humility. Yet even after failure, God did not abandon him. Samson's final act reminds us that no matter how far someone falls, redemption is still possible. True strength does not come from power, talent, or muscles. It comes from obedience, humility, and dependence on God. And that is the story of Samson.